This is my second year in that program. The Year 2 program began in August. My Year 1 coach, Kevin Courtney, has retired. Very sad, I miss him. But I am very excited that I will be working with Mary Ellen Brunel, former Auburn superintendent this year, and I've been working with her since August. School and district MCAS and accountability reports. Although we are planning a comprehensive presentation on MCAS and accountability next month, I want to give a brief update on some of the actions we identified based on our assessment of district-wide data last year. In addition to MCAS, we continue to administer the NWEA growth assessments in the fall, winter, and spring. Students are assessed 3 times each year, allowing us to measure their growth over time. Data teams at each school meet and review grade level data. Student supports are identified and implemented through this data analysis, and those supports include during the school and after school supports. Principals at each school have also been meeting with teachers during PLCs and reviewing district MCAS and accountability results. We are adding a new tool, IXL, district-wide. NWEA results can be loaded into IXL, and IXL will individualize a plan for the skills each student should practice based on the NWEA assessment. IXL can also provide specific skill practice aligned to Into Math, the Whitcomb School core math program. A new K-12 literacy program was implemented this month. Many classroom teachers in grades K-10 piloted at least one unit last year to develop a deeper understanding of the resources available in each unit. At the elementary level, teachers received training and planned units during early release days throughout the 2022-2023 school year. Professional development was also offered over the summer months for K-10 teachers and will continue to be offered during the school year. The district also received a GLEAM grant, Growing Literacy Equity Across Massachusetts. This grant is designed to support districts in implementing equity-driven and sustainable improvements in programming and will provide support to Whitcomb School ELA teachers as they implement this new curriculum. Professional development connected to this grant began this month. We are working district-wide to mitigate chronic absenteeism, which erodes the foundation for academic success that our students rely on. While our teachers are working hard in designing high-quality, innovative lessons, students must be in school to reap the benefits of those lessons. We are working to understand and address the root causes for high absenteeism, and we have implemented the Talking Points app to improve our school-to-family communication. Please note that those 2 bullet points, the IXL and the Talking Points, were covered in this month's episode of Superintendent's Corner by Director of Instructional Technology, Chris Henry. All educators and administrators in the district will continue to focus on increasing our students' English language proficiency and all students' academic language, which is not innate to any of us, through our district-wide professional practice goals focused on implementing SEI strategies, which is Sheltered English Immersion Strategies. And this is year 2 of that initiative. I'm hoping to schedule a school committee workshop in order to further discuss these plans as we move forward as well. Thank you.
Questions for the superintendent? Anyone? Catherine.
Thank you so much for the information. I guess my question is for us to try and get the workshop scheduled. I'm thinking we're talking sooner rather than later. Is it something that your office might be able to send out a number of different options of timeframes so that we can then all respond fairly efficiently in getting something planned?
Absolutely.
Okay, that'd be very helpful so we can get right on that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, moving on. Dr. Skaza, are you next? Who's next? My computer is frozen.
Mr. LaFleur?
Oh, I apologize. Mr. LaFleur.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Oh, here we go.
I have a couple of updates tonight, the first being the Richer Elementary MSBA project. As you're all aware, on June 1st, the district entered the eligibility period with the Mass School Building Authority for a potential project. This 270-day eligibility period is the preliminary phase following the statement of interest which the district submitted in 2022. To date, we've got a good portion of it done. Certification of the district's understanding of the grant program rules was made by an initial compliance certification made with the MSBA. The school building committee has been formed and the membership submitted to the MSBA for acceptance. We've completed an educational profile questionnaire, make the MSBA understand the district's current and proposed educational facilities, teaching methodology, grade configurations, and program offerings, and we've submitted online enrollment projections. We have a few extra steps. In fact, they just reached out to me yesterday. We will be submitting the October 1 data for enrollment, the official DESE annual data next week. So that will be submitted next week. We will go through a couple of volleys with them to certify that enrollment by November 28th. From there, we just need the votes. So the school committee and the city council need to vote a community authorization and funding for feasibility by February 28th. And we also, by that date, need to complete the MSBA's standard feasibility study agreement. So we're almost there. Any district that completes that within the 270 days is eligible to receive an invitation from the MSBA Board of Directors to enter feasibility. I would guess that would be at their April board meeting unless we can get it done quicker. Now the bad news, yellow bus transportation update. It's the bane of my existence.
Welcome to Marlborough.
Our transportation services continue to be impacted by a shortage of drivers. Out of the 5 NRT contracts running out of the Hudson Terminal, there were 12 routes without permanent drivers, 6 of which are here in Marlborough. There are currently 2 drivers training for their CDL licenses that will be assigned to Marlborough once they are licensed. We have all district routes being covered by combining routes, buses doubling back and borrowing from other districts. However, on average, we have 2 elementary routes 30 minutes or longer late to school on a daily basis. As additional drivers complete their training and attain their CDL license, we will assign them to routes based on the most critical need at the time. Until then, the service remains susceptible to daily impacts due to driver callouts, mechanical breakdowns, weather, etc. We communicate with NRT throughout the day, beginning about 6 a.m., and work quickly to inform impacted schools and parents as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Mrs. Matthews.
Mr. LaFleur, on the 6 runs that we're being impacted by, obviously greater than any other district, I know we share runs with the other school in town.
Mm-hmm.
Are they feeling an impact as well? Because I
they
know
are.
we shared the impact last year. It can't always be our side.
I think their impact is more in the afternoon,
Okay.
because our secondary schools are the first tier, then they go to that school and then come back for our elementary.
Gotcha.
So I think they struggle because they're in a converted or repurposed office building. They don't have a space to hold 200 or 300 students while waiting. So, yes, they are.
Okay. Thank you. No, I mean, we have to spread the pain. We can't all take it. Thank you.
Ms. Hennessy.
Thank you. So I'll stick with the transportation question and then go back to MSNB. Well, you got it, whatever. I'm like, blah, 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 too much. So relative to the kids being late to school, how are we handling that from an academic standpoint? You know, I'm just curious, because when we're talking about the absenteeism and the impact on, intervention, I'm just curious, how is that being handled at this point? And I know it's out of our control, but we have to try and figure out some resolution on the other side.
Large numbers of our students are being impacted on a daily basis, and they're losing the instructional time. We talked about the impact of being absent from class. This is everyday lack of instruction for a number of our students. One of the focuses that we've been doing is no fault of the students or the families. So we're trying to make sure that we are coding it, that students are missing instructional time, but it's not an unexcused from class time, because we don't want it to, one of the things we've been talking about, well, it shows up on a report card. My child's been tardy 65 days this term, or something like, because even 5 minutes is going to be noted as a tardy. So we're trying to develop systems internally to do that as well. Assistant Superintendent O'Brien has been working with the data, and the office supports on that. But other than noting which buses are constantly late and then giving them priority access as the interventions are offered, we're not going to punish them for not being in class.
I'm appreciative of not, having a punishment for it and being able to note something in the system. I guess I'm just concerned about how we can target intervention to make sure that we're able to support those students and that, we're not causing them any additional pain because of something that obviously is out of their control and yet something out of our control. I do hope, and I'm pretty sure that you all are documenting this, because I feel like at a certain point we then need to go back to North Reading, and there has to be some kind of a financial impact that they feel on their end, because not only is it financially not meeting the contract that was agreed to, but it's now also impacting our students and their potential achievement or lack thereof. So, I think it actually has to be documented so that there is recognition on their part, because, that's what they're there to do. And I know that many districts are in the same situation. I can't worry about the many districts. I need to worry about ours. So my hope is that, it's kind of in writing, which I'm sure it is, but easier to say it out loud than expected, right?
Yeah, it definitely is. I think students will always have access to what the class was doing in the gap time.
Yep.
I think we would navigate, you have at times, we've talked about this, there is homework on a regular, could be on a regular basis. So you don't want to punish and give extra, but if there was a priority, it would be the classwork would be the priority rather than a homework assignment that was reinforcing something.
Yeah.
But students have access between their Seesaw accounts and their Google Classrooms to what was assigned to the beginning.
Yeah.
So that isn't, but nothing takes the place of a student being in the class with our educators in the Marlborough Public Schools, and we believe that passionately. And we've had this discussion for the last couple of years because it feels like our students that at times could be at a higher risk are getting punished more than more affluent communities that surround us.
Yeah.
Are the schools being affected all elementary?
It's a variety. And if in the afternoon the Whitcomb buses or the secondary buses are late, then that's an opportunity for the students to stay with some staff members. The Whitcomb School is always asking for support to expand their homework club that they have. So at times I do think it's a bus that is coming late to school and then leaving late in the afternoon. So that's the time they're making up, but it's not a guaranteed that it's the same group.
Okay. So thank you for the information. I guess we're just going to have to monitor all of this kind of closely and how it moves forward. And hopefully we can somehow get some better resolution. The second question was about the MSBA work that you were in process of doing. Knowing that we are in an election year and that a number of different positions are kind of up for having definitely some new faces. Is there a way that we can try and be a little proactive on potentially after the election, but prior to people taking the seats, plan some form of informational session, I guess I would say, for potentially new city councilors and/or the new mayor, because there will be a new mayor that has never sat in that seat, just to make sure that everybody is on the same page about what we need to be prepared to do. Just because I feel like in waiting for January for everyone to get sworn in, it's putting a tight time crunch on that February deadline. So, I don't know what the allowance is, and maybe if we just make it a workshop or an informational session, then we aren't running into problems. And it could include city councilors and that, may not necessarily be in their seat later on, but would be there, and I'm sure they would want to be a part of it because they've been a part of the community anyway for a long time. So just kind of putting it out there as something I think that might be helpful, because I feel like in having some discussions with some of the mayoral candidates, that not everybody understands the full process. It is confusing, and so it may be helpful for us as a group to all work through things together. So, thank you.
Good idea. Anybody else? Okay. Dr. Skaza.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have some updates for the committee tonight regarding the start of school late August into September. The first is with new staff orientation. New staff orientation was a success with roughly 45 new hires to the district in attendance. New hires received information from a number of departments, including human resources, finance, nursing, counseling, the Office of Teaching and Learning, the Marlborough Educators Association, and Lynn Medallion and Michelle Blair were also able to add a session on the My Name, My Identity training that many of our staff members have previously experienced. That was new to the menu this year. On the second day of orientation, new staff members reported to respective buildings for a site-based training. And a special thanks to our IT department, who helped with a seamless transition between the presentations and the auditorium. There were a bunch of presentations, and Cindy Luke and Scott Parmenter were awesome in making sure that nobody's time was wasted and we got information to all our new hires in a timely fashion. Mentoring induction. The mentoring induction program is up and running. On September 14th, we held a virtual meeting to discuss the process and plan for the experience. That was a rescheduled meeting. We were supposed to meet in person when it was very hot that week, so we decided to put it off and meet virtually the following week. So that was successful in a virtual format, and MPS continues to provide a mentor to all first-year educators in our district, regardless of their previous experience, which is, as you all know, in an effort to retain teachers in our district with quality mentorship in their first year. Restorative justice trainings continue. For the second straight year, the new hires to the Marlborough Public Schools at the late August mark anyhow were trained in a 2-day overview of Tier 1 practices. In addition to these trainings for new hires, each school will introduce a new cohort to the Tier 1 or Tier 2 trainings. Most schools have chosen Tier 2 that focus on community building in the classrooms and resolving harm and conflict. Whitcomb School was the first to begin their next series of Tier 2 trainings and finished last Thursday, September 21st, and Marlborough High School will start a Tier 2 training series on Wednesday, September 27th. We are fortunate to have our Supervisor of Social Emotional Learning, Lindsay Castro, completing an apprenticeship as the trainings proceed this year. She will be an official trainer soon. And then finally, the FY24 ESSA grants. I'm happy to report that our FY24 Every Student Succeeds Act grants have been accepted with a start date of August 8th, 2023. That was our original submission. These grants include Title I, Title II, Title III, and Title IV funding for the Marlborough Public Schools.
Thank you, Dr. Skaza. Any questions? Seeing none. Entertain a motion on acceptance of September 12th minutes.
Motion to approve the September 12th minutes.
Motion made and seconded to approve. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Carries. Public comment. Anyone from the public wish to address the committee? Public comment? Seeing none. Action items, MHS staggered openings for 2023-24. Dr. Riley.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you
Good
for
evening.
having me tonight. This is our annual request for consideration around staggered openings to support large-scale testing days at Marlborough High School. And so for your consideration, we have 7 dates laid out throughout the duration of the school year. They are our PSAT, SAT testing day, which is right around the corner. And then also 6 days for MCAS, 2 for each subject area.
Motion to approve the proposed dates.
Motion made and seconded to approve. Any discussion?
I have a question.
Ms. Matthews.
Assuming if we have weather dates and things have to be moved, that will just come through the superintendent for any changes that might possibly happen?
Absolutely, absolutely, yep.
Because hopefully by the October 11th will be okay, but we never know on the others.
Never know. Any other comments, questions?
I just ask that, please make sure that parents are aware of these changes, because a lot of times we don't know until just a day or two before.
Absolutely,
So that, just to make sure that they're well publicized.
absolutely, 100%.
Thank you.
Anyone else? We have a motion on the floor. All in favor? Opposed? Carries.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you
sir.
very much.
MASC delegate. Who wants to be the delegate this year? Denise doesn't.
Again, I mean, Gavin did it. I don't mind doing it again. I had to take a break last year, but
Oh, right, you missed last year.
I'd like to make a motion for Mrs. Matthews to be the delegate, and I would be more than happy to be her second.
Oh, excellent.
Thank
And
you.
I will attend.
I accept graciously.
Awesome. Motion made in second to appoint Mrs. Matthews delegate and Ms. Hennessy as the alternate. I will be in attendance as well, so Marlborough will be in the house. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
I'm abstaining.
Opposed?
You're going anyway.
Carries. Excellent. So the annual reading of the resolutions. And, my copy on
Don't
here
worry.
was kind of wonky. But
Denise is
Mrs.
all ready.
I know, and I think since you have it, you can read them.
Yay.
Yay.
right, let's see.
Excellent. Good idea to leave. This is the,
Dan's like, I'm
this
out
is
of here.
the riveting part of our work.
All right, let me find it. What page does it start on?
So just for the audience, what we are about to read are resolutions.
Tonight or not, just for clarification.
Are we not?
Usually if it's in there, we vote.
We usually vote on them.
Let's just get it out of the way. This is probably why Arthur's not here.
Yeah, good, yeah,
Could be.
that's true. It could have been his last hurrah. He would have enjoyed it. So the Massachusetts Association of School Committees, which is our professional support organization, conference in November has a delegate assembly, which Mrs. Matthews will represent us at. And a big portion of that meeting is to vote on resolutions which drive the work of the association and the school committees in terms of lobbying, mostly, for changes to happen. And these are the resolutions.
All right, so Resolution 1 is full stable funding for METCO. So I don't read the whole thing. What do I read?
No,
Like parts?
usually read the
The
first.
whole thing is whereases. All right.
No, just like the first whereas, so you
Okay.
kind of get an idea.
I'll read the first few. So this one says, whereas in 1966, the first 220 students rode buses from Boston neighborhoods to schools in 7 suburbs, and
The last whereas before the therefore.
That explain, you don't have
Yeah,
to read
that
the
explains-
history, yeah.
Because that explains it, what
Okay.
the objective is.
whereas requiring METCO funding to be subject to appropriation results in METCO families and partner districts spending considerable time and energy to lobby for funding to maintain the current level of services. Therefore, be it resolved that the Massachusetts Association of School Committee calls upon the governor and the legislature to create a stable funding structure to support METCO and its partner districts that fully funds the support provided by METCO and the cost of providing services delivered by METCO's partner districts.
I will make a motion to approve the support of that resolution.
I will second.
Okay. We have a motion and second. Any discussion? Just so everyone knows, some of these resolutions don't apply to us. It's just a matter of whether or not we feel in support of our other member districts across the state in the work that they do. And the flip, it happens in the opposite. Sometimes there are things that would affect us that don't affect other districts, so. No discussion. Okay. All in favor? Opposed? Carries. So, number 1 is approved.
All right, resolution number 2 regarding investigations and recommendations for transportation bidding procedures. This one's not that long, so I think I'll read it all.
Okay. And Mr. LaFleur, all ears.
Whereas school districts across the Commonwealth are struggling with the problem of transportation services and the bidding and purchasing of these services, and whereas a stunning number of districts find that after soliciting multiple bids, it is a frequent occurrence that only a single bidder submits a proposal. And whereas in light of the paucity of submissions, the single bidder is able to propose significant increases over previous years, exacerbating. Sorry, I'm only up to 3rd grade level. Not only financial matters, but also skepticism about the integrity of the bidding process. Therefore, be it resolved that the Mass Association of School Committees prevail upon the Office of the State Auditor to investigate the bidding practices of school transportation providers and to present such findings and recommendations as may be necessary to contain costs and make more efficient transportation services available for public schools.
I'll make a motion to approve this resolution.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion. Mrs. Matthews.
So I was at the MASC board meeting when the resolutions were presented, and this one was almost not going to come forward, because it's still, while Mr. LaFleur can attest, and we can all know from being members of districts that have a difficult time receiving multiple bidders, unless somebody is going to come forward and hang somebody out there, it's going to be very hard to prove that there was any collusion or things happening behind the scenes. And so there was actually a big discussion on that last paragraph, really whose office? Should it be the Attorney General's office? Should it be the Auditor's office? Should it be, because it's, nobody wants to take responsibility for it. And how do you govern it? And so the board that day decided, we'll let it come forward, and it can be a if enough committees want to talk about it there. let the floor decide at that point, because some have no issues at all, you know, with getting bids, and others can barely get one bid. And it's not just because of location or, you know, it is, as we know, a struggle. So that's just my feedback from the meeting that night. So, as I said, I will support it because I feel personally that there needs to be something looked at. I just don't know where to begin.
We do know that this currently sitting auditor does like to investigate things.
Well, and that's,
So,
I think that's why
I
it ended
have-
back at auditor as
Yeah.
opposed to attorney general, because attorney general, they felt was a little, had anybody filed a complaint yet? And there was no proof of any legal complaint.
Right.
So they figured, let's start with the auditor and see if the auditor can look at where bids have been made and if there's been any companies that have overlooked areas or so on.
Yeah. Mr. LaFleur, do you have anything to add to this? You,
No, it's my experience, one bidder.
yeah.
Hopefully we can do better next time.
Well, and do you think that this is a good idea to have somebody? Okay.
Needs to be oversight, especially with the roll-up with NRT buying almost every other company right now.
Right.
It's becoming a monopoly. So I think it's a good idea.
Okay. Ms. Hennessy?
So my only comment was gonna be, I think we just need to go into it. If in fact we're gonna vote for, in support of this resolution, I think we just need to walk into it knowing that this probably is gonna have conversation on the floor, and that it could be around that office or potentially Attorney General, but that we need to kind of go in with it knowing that there's probably gonna be some big conversation that, you know, Heidi and or myself would have to adjust to, and I'm sure you're probably gonna be sitting on the wings anyway, too.
And, you know, that point should be made for all of these.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes we never know what's gonna be, you know, you think, oh, this is gonna be a hot issue and it's not a big deal, and you go in and some like random one that you don't even think is a big deal is like hours of, sometimes the delegate assembly gets a little out of hand. But anything can be changed from the floor. Delegates make resolutions from the floor to change things, so in electing the delegate, we kind of have to give the delegate the freedom to vote their conscience once they're in there, because what they're presented with as the final answer may not wind up being the same thing that we're voting on tonight. Does that make sense? Any other?
So, the question here, and I guess, you know, maybe you could answer some, do we think, is it the belief of the whichever
Resolutions Committee?
resolution committee came up with, that there's some, you know, foolery going on behind the scenes, which is why you only get one bid? Some kind of collusion?
Some-
Or could it be that there's, I mean, we've already seen, there's just no drivers? So
Well, but just for
maybe-
the bidding process
But I'm
alone.
saying, if you're a company with drivers and you don't have much to take, you don't have enough to take on another, why would you put in a bid? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, maybe that's part of it too.
Well, I
I'm
guess,
not
it's
saying
the
that's a
oversight. It's having the oversight to look
Yeah.
at it.
Having
My
the
question,
oversight,
yeah.
and I think that the comment that Mr. LaFleur was saying about the monopoly, I think it's
Okay.
actually just trying to uncover, if you will, that there's a concern, a bigger concern about the potential practice or mispractice, you know, that's going on, and that something needs to be done, you know, to help it.
Just clarifying.
No, thank you. I just want to point out one other thing. Maybe when you read the resolution, can you state who the sponsor is?
Oh, sure.
Sometimes it's helpful to know. So the first one, the one on Metco, was sponsored by the Arlington School Committee. This second one was put out by a VOTEC school, actually, Southeastern Vocational Technical School. So just putting that in that perspective, they're pretty far away from us. So they're probably not dealing with NRT. So it's not just like an NRT issue. This is going on all over the state, and people are just concerned that it's like deals are being done behind closed doors and nobody knows really what's going on. So just having that ability to get that oversight. Okay, did we vote?
No.
No,
But we have
the motion.
motions. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Carries. Thank you. Number 3.
All right, Resolution 3 is Regional Transportation, sponsored by the Hamden Wilbraham Regional School Committee. Let's see, whereas, as outlined in Mass General Law, Title 12, Chapter 71, Section 16C, did I say that right?
Yep.
The regional school district shall be subject to all laws pertaining to school transportation, and when the agreement provides for the furnishing of transportation by the regional school district shall be obliged to provide transportation for all school children in grades kindergarten through 12, and the Commonwealth shall reimburse such district to the full extent of the amounts expended for such transportation, subject to appropriation. And I'm gonna skip a couple of whereases and jump to, let's see, whereas the Commonwealth of Massachusetts has not consistently reimbursed regional transportation to the full extent of the amount expended for such transportation. Therefore, it be resolved that in such case where a pupil resides greater than 1 1/2 mile from the school attendance, measured by a commonly traveled route, and the Commonwealth reimbursement does not fully cover the amounts expended for such transportation, the regional school district may allow pupils to opt out of such transportation, or may charge a fee that in aggregate may not exceed the differential between the amounts expended for furnishing transportation and the Commonwealth reimbursement. Be it further resolved that the MASC encourage the legislature to modify Mass General Law Title 12, Chapter 71, Section 16C, with the aforementioned proposed language or alternative, and remove the period, to provide regional districts the ability, if so desired, to charge a transportation fee that in aggregate cannot exceed the differential between the and that the Commonwealth reimbursement and the regional school district transportation expense for any pupil that resides greater than 1 1/2 mile from the school of attendance, measured by a commonly traveled route. Pupils may opt out of transportation and not be subject to a transportation fee.
I will make a motion to approve this.
Motion made and seconded to approve. Now, this mumbo jumbo about the law, that's what the law states.
Right.
And all districts have that whole business about the ages of the kids and living 1.5 miles. That's codified in law. So, any other discussion?
So if I'm understanding this correctly, this boils down to that the regional schools can now charge a fee for busing.
Yeah, I mean,
It's oversimplification, I understand.
It is, and that's kind of part of it, but the reason behind it, and this has been an issue that MASC has supported because it's been an issue with regional schools since the beginning of time. And you'll see when we talk about the changes to MASC and the other part of this adventure we're on here, that some of these topics just get pushed over year after year after year because either nothing gets done or not enough gets done. And the whole deal with regional schools, like let's say Lincoln Sudbury, if you have a kid that lives in Lincoln and the high school's in Sudbury, it's a pretty far drive to get to school. And school districts have had to fit the bill because originally when those combined districts were formed, part of the state's deal was that the state was going to reimburse them for a portion of that transportation. So it wouldn't be so heavily dependent, let's say, on Lincoln having to transport the kids to Sudbury. Historically, the state has never stepped up and provided the funding that they're supposed to be funding, because that amount is subject to appropriation. If there's not enough money in the state coffers, that's one of the places that gets hit. So with the rising costs of transportation that we all deal with statewide, they're just saying, hey, we've been asking the state all these years to do what you're supposed to be doing. If you're not going to do it, at least give us the ability to charge a bus fee. So, yes, you're right. That is what it's asking, but knowing the reason why they're asking is important. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Carries. Thank you.
You have a
Number
question,
4.
Earl? Wait, Earl's still,
Oh, that's okay.
Sorry. Because I understand why they would want to charge, because they're paying out lots of money for busing, the state's not reimbursing them or not reimbursing them enough. So on that end, I understand why the district would want to charge a fee to make up the difference. But it's public school, everybody else gets free transportation. Why do they, some places have to pay?
Well,
As a parent. And I know it's not us necessarily, but
We're one of the only districts in the state that don't charge
well,
transportation.
and I guess my clarifying question back to Earl's concern
Yeah.
is, I think what's more important in this is the ability to opt out.
Right.
That a child can opt out and not pay the fee, so a parent's gonna drive instead.
still an
So,
expense for them, yeah.
right, you know, but exactly, like if you have only 2 children that you're sending a bus for on the other side of town, if I were Mr. LaFleur, I'd be on the phone with the parents going, drive your kid, please, I don't need another bus going that far, you know?
But just in general, I mean,
Yeah.
with traditional single-town districts, most districts statewide charge a
Yes.
transportation fee.
Yes.
The big cities don't, and we don't, but it's pretty rare. All of our surrounding districts have bus fees, all of them.
You say no? Okay. Thank you for the clarification.
Yes, thank you. Number 4.
All right, number 4, Resolution 4, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, submitted by District 10, amended by the Resolutions Committee. Whereas we are responsible for fostering equitable learning environments wherein all students, staff members, and families are treated with respect and their voice and presence valued regardless of race, ethnicity, gender identity, sexual orientation, expression, religion, natural origin, culture, physical ability, or other status, and whereas we should always stand, speak out, and help educate against violence and injustice on the basis of prejudice or discrimination, and whereas we should provide inside and outside of the classroom support to continue efforts centered on equity, diversity, and inclusion, with a heightened awareness and focus on racial equity, and to adopt proper speech and text to the furtherance of these objectives. Therefore, it be resolved that MASC recommends that all districts adopt the position of DEI coordinator to work towards an anti-racist school system.
Just point of clarification, when you said who wrote this one, it's Division 10, you said District 10. So Division 10
Division
is
10.
the DEI, is what used to be, it's division of MASC, and it used to be,
Urban.
no, not urban. Urban
Oh.
is still urban.
Oh,
It's,
Minority.
like, it used to be the minority
It
caucus.
was minority caucus, right?
And we changed it, there aren't caucuses anymore, they're all divisions, and it's the DEI division, which encompasses the whole state. Anybody can be part of
Anybody
that
part of it.
division. So I just wanted to clarify that.
So motion to support Resolution 4.
Motion made and seconded to approve. Any discussion?
I just have a question.
Of course.
Are there any other ways that you can achieve that? I just don't want to, like, leave any, just say only do this, you can't do something else? Are there any other
a good
ways you
question.
can achieve that?
Yeah, my initial thought was not every district can afford to hire a DEA position.
There's other
But-
programs out there.
But that doesn't mean that somebody could be stipend to have that, coordinator of DEI as part of their other job. Doesn't necessarily mean you have to hire a new person. And it's just a recommendation. Yes.
I do think that that's something that should be voiced, though, at the meeting, because, to your point, not all districts are going to have the financial ability to create a position specific to DEI. I mean, I think the idea of having someone that's part of in their wheelhouse makes a ton of sense, but the idea that, I don't want us to be just like where we have problems with the state on, the state or DESE saying you must do X and then there's not
Unfunded
funding.
mandates.
I don't want to be in that same position. And I think that that's something that needs to be communicated about concerns about this resolution, is that there needs to be some form of language that allows for it to be a portion of somebody's position that, may already be within the district. Something like that, just responsibilities of DEI owned by somebody, not a position created specific. So in theory, I'm totally in support. I just think that we need to make some kind of a comment about it.
And we can do that
On the floor.
in a formal way by drafting an amendment to that, which Heidi can present as an official statement from us wanting to amend this, or we can just leave it to Heidi to comment or not comment when she's there.
You can submit an amendment prior to the
Yes.
delegate assembly, or I can do it on the floor. If we want to agree on wording here, now, or even at the next meeting, that's fine too. So I'm happy with that.
So I would suggest, I'll be more than happy to go ahead and take a stab at pulling something together. And through Patty Civilio, maybe she can disseminate it out to everyone appropriately, so that we can make sure that it's on the agenda for our discussion at the next meeting. So you would have something in hand that we could approve, and then hopefully we could potentially even submit it.
Great.
Thank you. Does that make sense?
And you
Thank you.
keep Dan's question of, are there other ways to achieve this?
Yeah.
That perspective.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Make sense?
So,
Yeah.
yes, we have motions on the floor. Do we want to table this one, or do we want to vote it pending?
My suggestion, purely my suggestion, is that we go ahead and vote. I think we kind of have a flavor of where we may stand, understanding that we're going to have further discussion around the resolution and potential responses at the next meeting.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? It carries. Thank you. Number 5.
Just clarifying something. All right. Is that what it is?
That's a lot of money, isn't it?
So, Resolution
whole state.
5 is the Mass School Building Authority. And so let's see, I'm going to read a few of these. Whereas,
Submitted by.
so it's submitted by the Wachusett Regional School Committee. Whereas the School Building Assistance Program is the oldest capital grant program operated by the Commonwealth as established in Mass General Law, Chapter 70B, Section 1. And whereas the Massachusetts School Building Authority, MSBA, is charged to promote the thoughtful planning and construction of school facility space in order to ensure safe and adequate facilities for public schools and to assist municipalities in meeting the cost thereof. And I'm going to skip to whereas the MSBA is limited in funding as stated in Mass General Law 70B Section 7 to 800 million plus either the rate of growth in the dedicated sales tax revenue amount as defined in subsection A of section 35BB of chapter 10 or 4.5%. And I'm going to jump down to
Although that next one is
Next
important.
one's good too? Okay.
Yeah.
Whereas the MSBA has declared a pause on their accelerated repair program and limits on their core projects due to rising costs and inflation, and the need to stay within the annual cap as referenced in the memorandum of October 19th, 2022 from the MSBA Deputy Treasurer and Executive Director. And whereas each year, the accelerated repair program is delayed results in an increase in application backlog among the Commonwealth's existing backlog of school building needs. Therefore, be it resolved that the Massachusetts Association of School Committees calls upon the Massachusetts Legislature to amend Mass General Law, Chapter 70B, Section 7, by removing the 800 million cap. And it be further resolved that the Massachusetts Association of School Committees calls upon the Massachusetts School Building Authority to reinstate the accelerated repair program for 2024 applications. And be it further resolved that the Massachusetts Association of School Committees calls upon the Massachusetts Legislature to allow public preschools to be included in the accelerated repair program and core program.
I'm going to recommend a motion to approve as written. Yeah.
Motion made and seconded to approve. Discussion.
So one of the things is that last further resolved to include public preschools.
Right.
And I'm on the fence about it. Well, for us, it's supportive, but it also, there's so many buildings out there for primary school that are in need. And it's not a state requirement.
That's why they don't fund it now, because Massachusetts does not require
Right.
preschools.
So I'm on the fence because it can draw money away from districts that are desperately in need for their main buildings, yet we all know we want to get them in as soon as possible, the younger the better, but that's the only thing that I have a concern about in there, if it were to be amended, would be to say that piece, but opening it up to further, Mr. LaFleur, you've been through some building projects, you know, I mean, when they cut this one off last year on the accelerated programs, everybody just shook their head because they couldn't do anything anymore. Yeah, it was panic. And even that $800 million is not enough.
It seems like a
Well,
lot of money,
didn't
but
they
it's-
claim this past year that they had nothing to spend? I mean, there was minimal money.
Awarded 10 core projects.
Yeah.
Including the richer.
Right.
We
Right,
got one of them.
right. And no accelerated, or none of the accelerated at all, so, yeah. But I guess this also, just like the regional busing, they're all tied to taxes. They're all tied to, there's a give and take, so somewhere, but
There is a cap, so even if the taxes go way up, they can never
go past that 800.
go past that 800 million, which, why? I mean,
Right, if they
it doesn't
collected the
make
tax,
sense
right.
if the money's there.
Yeah.
Catherine?
Well, okay, and go back to, it's the Wachusett Regional School Committee, right? And you think about the preschool situation, and you're talking about a regional, which they probably have a multitude,
4 towns in
at least
Wachusett?
4. I thought Wachusett might even have more. But I mean, I just,
four.
my thinking is that, there are a lot of different communities all kind of pouring in, and there's one pot. There's one pot of money.
Well,
So
and in their district, using Wachusett as the example, they have some very old buildings in some of their smaller towns that are part of their district too, so.
I mean, I hear your concern. I think it's quite valid. There is only one pot of money for the whole state, and it's not something that is required. While we know from data point that the sooner you can get the kids into school, the better, but there's still school districts that aren't even doing full-day kindergarten. So let's be real.
Exactly.
You know, so,
Well, and I'll say this, and can a district under consideration under a new building talk about putting their preschool in a new building? Would MSBA consider that, or are they ignoring that? See, they're not, because they're not looking at,
They'll exclude that square footage.
right.
Same if you did it for administration, they will not fund that.
and so
Right.
to me, at that point, then I go, I personally start looking at that, and I'm like, I can't necessarily get behind that, because I have to look at all of the other pieces to the puzzle, right? And with all the other pieces to the puzzle, I'm like, I hear you, but I just don't think at this point I can say, that needs to be the priority. And we can't put everything out front. So I hear it. And I mean, there may be something that's brought up on the floor that could be something that we don't necessarily know or bring into the table now. But right now, I can't say I'm hugely behind saying, please, let's open it all up. So.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay. So I agree with Heidi. I think that, I would support this except for the last part. Because until the, much as we like to say about the preschools, until they're required, or until the state, says you have to have them or whatever, they're not gonna give money towards. So why put it in there? It will be discounted as a whole because of that piece. Not that we control how the resolution is worded, but if we have a, influence or we can speak our mind about it, that would be the only part that, I would be in support of it as a whole, other than that last part with the preschools.
We can do an amended.
So I will amend the motion to support, but striking the last paragraph. Public preschools. To be included.
Unless we do an amendment to this, though, what we'll get, unless we or someone else does an amendment.
No, I would have
this
to, well, I
is-
would have to do
yeah,
an amendment on the floor to
Got
ask
it.
for it to be struck.
Got it.
Or submit it ahead of time, either way. Probably on the floor, it's just as good because that's when it's gonna be discussed anyhow.
Correct. Anyone else?
I'll second her amendment.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. On the amended motion. All in favor? I'll state for the record, I'm opposed. I think preschools are critical to the rest of our schooling, and they need buildings. But the motion does pass with amended.
Moving along to Resolution 6, School Bus Stop Arms Surveillance Act and Enforcement and Penalties, submitted by the Peabody School Committee.
And the Marlborough
Marlborough
School
School Committee. It
Committee,
was in
and
the
they
packet.
forgot, yeah, they,
It's in the pack, there's a piece of paper in your packet that says.
Oh.
Yeah.
yeah, it went to print and they forgot us, but that was the one that we voted.
All right,
in a
well, here
school
we go.
committee meeting.
Whereas it is against the law in Massachusetts to pass a stop school bus with the stop arm extended and flashing lights while student passengers embark and disembark the bus. Unless witnessed by a police officer, the penalties for passing a stop school bus are minimal. The danger to the passengers is extraordinary and can prove fatal. Should I just read it all? Whereas a survey, no, I'm not gonna read that. Whereas technological advances have now made possible digital video violation detection monitoring systems to detect drivers failing to stop for school buses, and whereas penalties for passing a stopped school bus utilizing a digital video violation detection monitoring system need to be commiserate with the same penalties imposed for said action if witnessed by a police officer. Therefore, be it resolved that the Massachusetts Association of School Committees calls on the Massachusetts legislature to enact legislation to pass into law the ability for cities and towns to install on all school buses live digital video detection monitoring systems for the purpose of enforcing violations against the owner of a motor vehicle whose vehicle failed to stop for a school bus when required to do so by law. Keep going?
I think
We
we have-
submitted it. We had
we
the whole
have the
conversation
point.
about it.
All right, so we're good.
For anybody that's interested, the Peabody School Committee forwarded me it's a report from Channel 7 that investigated school bus safety, and it shows what this technology does. So I can pass it to anyone if anyone's interested, let me know.
So motion to support our resolution that we submitted.
Motion made and seconded to approve. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Carries.
All right. Resolution 7 related to MCAS, submitted by the Framingham School Committee. Whereas access to a high-quality, publicly funded education is a guaranteed right written under the Massachusetts Constitution, and whereas an effective public education program meets the needs of students who represent a variety of abilities and learning styles. Am I reading all of these? Or I'm going to scoot down to this one. Whereas using MCAS testing as a high school graduation requirement has prevented or delayed countless students from earning a diploma, either interrupting or derailing education or career plans. Therefore, be it resolved, the MASC urges Massachusetts to develop a wider, more consensus-built strategy for an evaluation system with meaningful input from legitimate stakeholders. That MASC urges the state legislature to launch a comprehensive evaluation to investigate the extent of biases pertaining to the MCAS testing and make these results public. The MASC urges Massachusetts to enact a moratorium on MCAS testing effective immediately. That MASC urges Massachusetts to develop an alternative to the high-stakes MCAS test.
Motion to support resolution 7.
Motion made and seconded to support. Discussion. MASC's
Every
been
year.
fighting
Framingham
every
puts it in
year.
every
We
year
have
and-
some form of this
Every year.
every year. And if you don't already know, which you probably do, there is a very good chance that this is gonna be on the ballot. Yeah, they're gathering signatures now. But the ballot question is specific to making MCAS not be a graduation requirement. It will it's not getting rid of MCAS. It's only affecting the graduation requirement.
So it's a piece of this one, but not the whole.
Piece of this. Although the resolves, none of them say that.
And through the chair, if I might,
Yeah.
isn't it the MTA that's actually doing the gathering of the signatures? Isn't it their push, correct?
Yeah, I could try and find her.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say, from my,
I saw
sorry,
one outside
listening,
of Price
listen,
Chopper.
yeah, I was gonna say, listening to the radio earlier today, it was on the topic of discussion.
I have a retired webinar tomorrow on that.
Well, there was a woman, I don't know if she was an MTA person, but they had like 5 different resolutions. She had people signing different ones.
I actually am not sure I have favorites.
So what do we want to do with this one?
What you asked for, because what else, what other kind of educational policy would you want the public to be on?
Motion and seconded, yep, to approve. Any further discussion? Should we just vote?
Sure.
All in favor? Oppose? Carries.
And lastly, we have, is this the last one? Yes. Resolution 8, safe storage of firearms, submitted by the Framingham School Committee. It's a lot of whereases in this one. So let's see. Whereas the safety and well-being of our students, teachers, and staff is a top priority in the schools, and keeping them safe from the threat of gun violence should be the responsibility of all adult stakeholders at each of our school sites. And I'm going to go to over here and read. Whereas across the country, lawmakers, community members, and local leaders are working together to implement public awareness campaigns such as the Be Smart program, which is endorsed by the National PTA and encourages secure gun storage practices and highlights the public safety risks of unsecured guns. And whereas secure storage of firearms is a legal requirement in Massachusetts pursuant to General Law, Chapter 140, Sections 131L and 131C, and failure to comply with secure storage laws can lead to criminal prosecution, jail time, fines, and/or revocation of FID card or license, depending on the offense. And whereas the American Academy of Pediatrics recommends storing firearms unloaded and locked with ammunition locked separately to reduce risks of injury to children. And whereas in order to continue with preventative measures to increase student and school safety, we must act now. Therefore, be it resolved that MASC recommends all districts to urge their superintendent and staff to create an appropriate communication to parents and guardians that explains the importance of secure firearm storage to protect children and teens from unauthorized access to unsecured firearms and their legal obligations consistent with Massachusetts safe storage law. Be it further resolved that MASC urges other communities to work with their local law enforcement agencies, health agencies, and nonprofit organizations to collaborate and increase efforts to inform district parents and guardians of their obligations regarding secure storage of firearms in their homes and vehicles.
So I am going to recommend a no on this. So I'm making a motion for a no.
I'm gonna second that.
Discussion.
Personally, I think our schools have enough the superintendents have enough on their plate. If the police department wants to have a mailing or something, backpack mail or something explaining these things, let it be on them. We have enough. We don't need to.
Agreed.
So.
I don't necessarily, I agree, but don't, it's not, I don't think it's because we have enough to do. I think this is weak. I don't think why are we resolving to have them send out a letter? It doesn't,
It
I
carries
don't have
no
a problem
weight.
with the idea of it,
Right,
but
it carries no
I don't
weight.
think it is very well put, so that's why I would disagree.
The idea of the school committee just wagging its finger at people and saying, don't do that. It's just, I don't know what's in the water in that town next to us, but it's been,
Stay in our lane.
yes, I was thinking the same thing.
Okay.
So
You should have been here.
I don't have a problem if we are
Discussing gun safety?
well, it's discussing safety in general,
Correct.
that this be added to the list and remind people that they should keep their firearms locked up so kids can't get a hold of them. I mean, I don't see any reason why this is not our purview. I mean, with the gun violence issues going on in this country, I mean, there are guns in this country. There's no getting around that. There's nothing that anyone is going to do that's going to get rid of that. But it is our responsibility as adults to make sure that if we have firearms, that they are not accessible to children. And it's just reminding them, you know, if we are reminding parents of safety issues in other realms, which of course I can't really think of what we do. What do we remind parents of safe practices? There-
Social media.
Yeah, there you
usage.
go.
But but
Right.
to your point, Michelle, and I think as you were mentioning, if it were something where the police, who are people that are dealing with guns, gun safety, that kind of thing in their realm, and they wanted to use, say, the district as a vehicle to at least send something home around that, I don't think I personally would be opposed if it came from like our chief of police felt like this would be something to distribute through the schools. I feel like for us from the school committee saying we want to, I just feel like I hear where you're talking about that we want to propose safety in many different areas, but this just is like, I feel like it's like, when do you draw the line about what portions of safety, you know, this is how you should be feeding your children, this is, you know, how you should be making sure
We know
you're
they should wear their
exerci-
seatbelts when in the car,
Right,
but we're
like
not
I
gonna
just-
send out
We're-
a reminder.
I hear you, and believe me, I'm all about gun safety. Just not sure that's our thing that we should be doing.
There's no teeth in this one anyhow. That's the other
I do
thing.
agree with that.
it-
I mean, I don't,
I would have loved to have had a conversation with the Framingham committee to say, what is your expectation of
what are you
this?
trying to achieve, yeah.
So,
I think we should just vote.
okay. So,
So the
no
this
vote.
is to
Not support.
not support. All in favor? Opposed? I'm wishy-washy, so I'm abstaining.
you're abstaining? Okay.
But it's approved. Approved, oh, correct. It is not approved.
As a no.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Oh, boy.
It is not approved.
Sorry, just wanted to make sure.
Yes, of course. Okay, do you want to do the amendment to the MASC bylaws?
I forgot about that. Excuse me, I forgot about that.
Yes, it is.
It is, it's the last one, proposal to amend the MASC bylaws. It's not a numbered
Do you
one.
want-
It's a bylaw one.
This one I can probably read.
I can read it. I can
referenced,
read too if you want.
it's page 26,
28.
maybe?
No, it's on the page you were just at, it's the top.
The proposal to amend the bylaws, yeah.
A proposal to amend the MASC bylaws. Resolutions will expire at the conclusion of the delegate assembly 3 years after their adoption. The MASC Legislative Committee shall provide a list of expiring resolutions to the membership no later than March 1st of the year in which they expire. Readoption of the expiring resolution can be accomplished under the method prescribed in Article 9, Section 1. This proposal was submitted by the MASC Legislative Committee. The rationale permits 3 years of focus on resolutions which overlaps 2 legislative cycles, provides an additional opportunity for school committees to become involved in the resolution process by championing resolutions which are set to expire, allows the association to affirm what's important to current membership by readoption, clears expired, less relevant, and no longer supported resolutions for new priorities.
So that's what I meant when I was saying that, you know, the regional transportation and the MCAS issues are ongoing. So things that are no longer relevant, they can get rid of, and you can continue ones after that.
Motion to support the proposal.
Motion made and seconded to approve. Any discussion? Seeing none. All in favor? Thank you. Congratulations. We survived another round of resolutions. Policies for approval. Mrs. Hennessy.
Thank you very much. So at the last meeting, you had both of these policies before you. Policy 8.001, student welfare / mandate reporting. And then policy 8.014, life-threatening allergy. Taking the first policy, we did receive a communication relative to this policy. The communication was some concern specifically around if you could go down to fire drills and reporting. Concern was about the fire department, that it's really not very specific. It just lists fire department throughout. And another area of concern was relative to Mass General Law actually states, Section 2A, the principal of any public or private school that provides instruction to pupils in any of grades 1 to 12 inclusive shall immediately report any incident involving the unauthorized ignition of any fire within the school building or on school grounds to the local fire department. So let me pull this apart a little bit for all of us so we can have a little discussion. Relative to the fire department, basically that is not something that we have any determination over. That's specifically something that the fire chief makes that call. And sometimes the call may go out that it may need to include Hudson, it may need to include Southborough, it may include Sudbury. That's something that we have no realm of management, and so that's really something that's all on behalf of the fire chief making that call. So that's actually why it allows for that latitude within that specificity, is really more to whatever the fire chief and the needs of the situation are, because plenty of us, a house fire, it could immediately turn that there are 3 house fires going on across the city, and the fire chief has to make the call of who's going to handle things. Same thing relative to the school district. So that situation is why we would be keeping it more on a general basis. Relative to the concern about the line within here that is currently reading the principal of any public or private school containing any of grades 1 to 12 shall immediately report any incident, blah, blah, blah. Basically, obviously, that was taken specific to Mass General Law. I do think the concern that was brought forth was obviously we have ECC, and we do have actually an extension of 12 plus.
And
So-
with kindergarten.
Okay, right.
Well,
right.
pre-K, pre-K
Yeah,
through.
all the way up.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, I think it's, quite valid. Obviously, that's something that maybe Mass General Law needs to be adapted, and that's not in my
They don't
realm.
recognize kindergarten and preschool.
Kindergarten, they do.
Well, right.
Kindergarten
They
is
don't
required
mandate
now.
it.
Yeah,
Oh, they do?
yeah. Kindergarten's required, isn't it?
No.
No.
It's still
No,
not.
It's still not.
Yeah, kindergarten,
It's still not.
yeah, I know.
What's the matter with us?
Exactly. So, I think there's some validity to that because obviously within our school district,
I think this specifically addresses the requirements so that the form is filled out and submitted to the Department of Fire Services if there is a fire that is started in a
Correct.
school building.
Yeah. Which of course, I think that would be happening with any of us.
It's also in all of our protocols and like in our like procedures on how each building would respond. I think it's more of, it's also policy.
Yeah. And that is something, whether it would be the principal or the director of each of our buildings would obviously take care of all of this information. So we can proceed as is with that portion. I just wanted to call that forward. We could make amendments if you feel that there's any kind of concern or necessity to make any type of change. But I do feel like, you know, we need to recognize that it is part of Mass General Law. Another concern that was brought forth was relative to any public or private school. Obviously, we are a public school. I think the private school also indicates the ability of anything that could come forth. Our favorite language of including but not limited to is one of those normal, lovely legal points that are often brought about. So I'm feeling like that's probably where that has come about within our jurisdiction. We obviously have to have some private schools need to come forward to be approved by us, but we really don't manage them across the board. But I think, as all of us would agree, pretty much if you're going to have a fire in your building, the administrators are probably going to make phone calls to the appropriate people. As normal human beings, I'm hoping they're stepping up. So
So
what's
the
your
point just is that the wording that is in this section basically is just
Mass General
Mass
Law.
General Law.
It's Mass General Law,
Okay.
which is also referenced later on in the policy where it says the legal references.
At the end, of course.
At the end. So, you know, I don't know if anyone, what everyone's feelings are, but I'll make a motion to move forward with the policy with the changes that we had brought forth the last time, and you all can decide how you'd like to move forward.
So that is a motion to approve policy.
The policy would be
8.001.
8.001, student welfare / mandated reporting.
Motion made and seconded to approve. Any further discussion?
Yes. Since, as you just said, that Mass General Law is not inclusive, we can vary the policy to cover ourselves. Do we want to, even though you're pulling it from Mass General Law, does it make more sense to just add containing grades preschool to 12 plus?
Obviously, we certainly could. I mean, we could do also, building principal / director or designee, which obviously those are lines that we have used in past and other policies.
We had legal look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
we did have legal look at it, and since it's Mass General Law,
Just stay put.
I mean, that,
Okay.
I think it's, as Mary had noted, it is something where we would have it as part of our policy that we have
Our
on.
internal procedures.
Exactly. Our internal
larger than
procedures.
the policy.
We're
Gotcha.
following Mass
Okay.
General Law through this statement, and that's I
then
think
I'm
why
fine with that.
the attorneys had suggested, it's just sticking with
Mass
exactly
General Law
what.
needs to catch up to reality.
Yeah, but I think
Gotcha.
as a practical note, this is something that, of course, throughout our district, each of the buildings are under procedures of what they have to do, and they're all following it,
Perfect.
ECC included, everybody.
Perfect.
Okay, sorry.
No, thank you. Thank you for the clarification on that. I wasn't sure if legal had
Yeah,
looked at.
we did.
Great. So,
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Carries.
Thank you very much. So the second policy that we would be voting on tonight would be policy 8.014, which is life-threatening allergy. So just to remind you all that we basically took the policy that was in this place and kind of needed to remove a huge amount of it. So we pulled a number of different policies from, I believe it was two other districts, finding some of the things that we needed back in that were specific to Marlborough that we wanted to make sure, such as around latex balloons and such like that. So, so we have that in here. Dr. Scott likes that part. So I'd like to make a motion to move forward with policy 8.014, life-threatening allergy, as it's important to our student body.
Motion made and seconded to approve. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Carries.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Special School Committee meeting, October 17th. Mrs.
you.
Murphy.
The Marlborough Akaruno Exchange Program has begun again after a hiatus during the COVID epidemic. Marlborough students have returned from their visit to Akaruno. The students and chaperones from Akaruno will be visiting Marlborough from October 13th to the 17th. There was no school committee meeting scheduled during the visit, and I think there's been a number of years since we've had a school committee meeting aligned with that. So we were wondering if it would be possible that for the school committee to discuss the possibility of scheduling a special meeting on Tuesday, October 17th, 2023, so we can formally welcome our guests from Akaruno. And it would be up to the wishes of the committee if this is a third meeting or if we want to switch off, whatever works for committee.
Through the chair.
Yes.
So I did speak with Ms. Roach, the advisor for them. And normally the students will come at some point to do their presentations. And she actually thought that that would be a good night to do it because it takes so much time usually. And this also is enough time. They have enough time to prepare for it.
So our students that just returned from
Correct.
Japan would make their presentations
Exactly, can
at
do
that
their
meeting.
presentations that night and just be here. And I mean, for the 12 years that I've been a school committee member, I've never participated in it here, because the city council in the past has been the one that's the welcoming committee, and nothing against the city council, but honestly, we were never included in that. And it's our school children, and I think it would be a nice thing for the kids to come with their chaperones and the ones who went and the hosts and so on. And it just be focused on that and give them that opportunity. So that's my preference, is just to make it an extra meeting to welcome them and so on, so.
Could we do an earlier time?
Did she get back to you on that? Because she was supposed to get back to me on that. I did ask for, I can get clarification on that. There is a city hall meeting at 4 that
I think
day?
it's 3 to 4,
3 to 4.
and they're doing the walking tour before that, and I believe they're doing takeout here, so I think.
So
I
there
don't
is the
think it's a
possibility,
problem.
we could possibly, if that works for people, to do either a 6:30 or a 7. I'm assuming it's probably only gonna
Are you
be,
looking for a 6?
6 would be better. I have another meeting that night.
I will ask. Heather did not return my text that, or from the other day, and I forgot to, I do apologize, I didn't follow up. But I,
Do dinner
it,
after.
what?
Could always do dinner after.
Yeah, we could always do takeout afterwards, so, yeah, so
Okay.
I'll work with Heather on the
Okay.
schedule, and then, I'll add it to Patty Sevilio's list.
I love the idea of actually having the kids that just got back from Japan come.
Well, it's still fresh.
Well, why it's still fresh, and I just think of, years previously, it was something where it was really fun when the kids that were coming over were able to get together with the kids that had just gone there, and it's just like rekindling those friendships and relationships and kind of keeping it going. And I think that's the whole reason of doing this. So I really think that's a great idea.
Yep. Agree.
Yeah, love it. So this is an action item. We need to entertain a motion.
Oh, motion to approve an additional meeting for October 17th, right? Yes. Oh, they're here longer than the 13th to the 17th. That's, the thing is they'll be visiting from the October. Yeah. Yeah, so additional meeting on October 17th to welcome our Akaruna visitors.
Motion made and seconded to approve. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Carries.
And we'll work on the time.
And we will work on the time. Acceptance of donations and gifts. Title Boxing Club, MPS $150.
Motion to approve.
Motion made and seconded to approve. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed, carries. Samantha Perlman, MPS $1,150.
Motion to approve.
Motion made and seconded to approve. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Carries. FY24 FC 240 IDEA grant for $1,596,624.
Can you do them all together?
I certainly can.
Please.
FY 24 FC 262 ECIDA grant for $70,568. And FY 24 FC 305 Title I grant, $1,024,360. FY 24 FC 140 Title IIA, $294,004. FY 24 FC 180 Title III grant, $294,004. $294,004. FY 24 FC 309 Title IV grant, $77,944.
Motion to approve.
Motion made and seconded to approve. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Carries. Thank you. Reports of school committee subcommittees. Any subcommittees? Seeing none, members forum. Ms. Matthews.
I have reviewed and signed the warrant.
Excellent. Any other members?
Can I just want to remind members of the Whitcomb School community that tomorrow night from 6 to 7 p.m. there is a parent workshop and meeting about the Yonder pouches. We all know that Whitcomb School has had a Power Down initiative going on for the last 2 years. They're expanding that initiative, but they want to make sure that all parents fully understand what they're trying to accomplish. So that workshop is in the Whitcomb Auditorium tomorrow from 6 to 7 p.m. It's on their homepage of their site too.
But it's not in the calendar.
It's on
Anything?
their calendar, or their calendar.
Anything from the MEA? Okay. Any other members wishing to be heard? Ms. Hennessy?
So I did want to let you all know that as part of, MIAA, we do have some news where exactly Ms. Matthews has been assigned to a committee, TMC.
TMC,
the
tournament.
The tournament committee. So that's really cool.
And I
now-
participated today for our first meeting of the year.
Ah,
Exactly, which is good. And I actually have stepped into a new role as well. I'm now on the board the board of directors. So, yeah, so. I'm
Congratulations.
pretty psyched about
That's
that.
awesome.
So hopefully we can make some changes. How about that? But I did learn two things that I'm going to follow up, and I had spoken to the superintendent about, which Taunton had been a part of, I guess, a learning PD that was sponsored through Northeastern, which was really about trying to remove the hate through sports. And I am going to look into that. It is something that has kind of been like a road show that's been going around, and they really spoke really highly about utilizing sports as a vehicle to really speak about, anti-bias issues and things like that. And I felt like that kind of goes hand in hand with some of what we are really aiming to do. So I'm going to find out more information about that. And a second thing that I thought would be great to look into further was they are piloting a new course which is teaching kids how to umpire, and they actually can get certified through this class, and working hand in hand with a curriculum that's already established through a place called like RefReps online. And I thought that it might be something for us to really look at, seeing if we might be able to embed it somewhere within our health and wellness opportunities, because not only would it allow for these students to participate in sports, maybe not actively from an athletic standpoint, but as an umpire, which would also allow for students to potentially also get money. Where we've also talked about sometimes that's where some of our participation numbers have gone down, because students need to go ahead and have a job to help their family out. So I thought that this was a great potential opportunity. Taunton has seen some benefits, and they've only just started it. So I think that they started with about, 20 some kids in this class, but it seemed like something that might be able to help some of our students. So I'm going to look into that and bring that forward, but I thought you all might be interested in hearing about that.
Great.
So, and the other thing I'm going to say, because this does have an impact on the direction for the schools and the school committee, they're going to be primary voting. The primary voting will take place on October 10th. And so that's the night of our next, that's the day of our next school committee meeting. So I'm just putting a plug in here that do your civic duty and get out and vote. It's on all of you to go ahead and have an opportunity to make your voice be known. And that will help the direction for the future of Marlborough and the school committee and the school district. So thank you very much.
Anyone else?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion made and seconded to adjourn at 9:10 PM. Motion made and seconded to adjourn. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? We are adjourned at 9:10 PM. Thank you.